Welcome in, everybody. We've officially made it. It is Super Bowl episode, Reignmaker style. My name is Chris Costa, your host, and with me again, my trusted counterpart, Mr. Peter Jennings of LuckyTrader.com. Pete, good to have you, man.
Chris, great to be with you. Really excited for the Super Bowl. I think arguably we have the two best teams in the Super Bowl. They've been all year. So it should be a lot of fun and a lot of interesting props, DFS contests. And of course, we have huge Rainmaker contests. So stoked to chat with you.
Huge Rainmaker contest. And yeah, a lot of exciting action that always comes around the Super Bowl. But beyond that, some really exciting things that are Rainmaker specific going into 2023, right? We've gone through our first full season of Reignmakers football. We've had a lot of fun. We've seen crazy ups and downs and swings within the season and injuries and trades and movement. And a lot of questions have been surrounding the community around, hey, what do I do with my cards next year? Well, amazingly enough, DraftKings and Reignmakers have come out with a really amazing solution or a really amazing answer to what to expect to do with your cards from this year. Craft and burn. Officially announced, where 10% of the 2023 cards are actually going to come from trading in 2022 cards and exchanging them for next year's versions. You can also still use, if you want to keep any of your existing cards, those cards next season, and you will be able to compete in side contests for over $100,000 in weekly prizing using those cards from this year. So your cards from this year, the collections that you've built, the investments that you've made are going to carry value into next season, which I think is one of the really cool things of the Reignmakers game and platform. Pete, want to get your thoughts as a player here, also as somebody who has experience in Web3. What do you think of when you hear about this new craft and burn strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea by DraftKings. I'm super stoked that they're doing it. I think the early adopters in this community are getting rewarded for being involved, and it's smart. I mean, I think now you have some trade-offs. You can say, hey, I want to play and compete in these contests with only 2022 cards, or you can get into the bigger contests for next year by burning your cards. So to me, it's a really smart solution. It rewards early adopters and it just creates more nuances within the game that'll be a lot of fun. So I think it's genius by DraftKings. I'm excited about the evolution of Reignmakers, the new sports. Things are just going so well. So I'm stoked about it, and I think it was a really smart decision.
Yeah, really amazing. It really just kind of makes you that much more excited about 2023 football and really getting into next season and getting into our second full season of Reignmakers. I'm curious though, Pete, as your approach to the game kind of unfolds and develops, do you envision yourself being a burner? Do you see yourself being a collector and utilizing them for those side prizes, or do you kind of do a mix of both?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I'd probably do a little bit of a mix of both. If there's maybe a couple cards that you have sentimental value for that you want to collect and own long term, that would be the main bull case to me to keep them. And obviously, you have the secondary prizes in these side contests. From an EV standpoint, though, and maybe there's a lot of collectability. Maybe people will like, especially for certain cards. I think there will be, but I think the Craft and Burn is really interesting because I expect Rainmakers to grow next year, and there's going to be some really big contests. I just think it's a really clever solution to reward people who invested in this ecosystem early on.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Web3, right? You have the ability to deploy this type of utility and give people the ability to get value out of the assets that they've invested in this year. So really exciting stuff, but also exciting. It's Super Bowl weekend. Okay. It is officially Super Bowl time, folks. And Reignmakers Super Bowl weekend is as exciting as any weekend as we've ever had. You've got 5 tiers, as you are all aware. We have 100,000 in total prizes at the core level with 10,000 to first. We've got $100,000 in prizes at the rare level with 20,000 to first. You've got $300,000 in total prizes at the elite level with $100,000 to first. Crazy. And then at the legendary and Rainmaker level, you have $250,000 total each with $50,000 each to first. So you have two $50,000 prizes at the legendary and Rainmaker level. You have a $100,000 prize at the elite level. Oh my goodness. You've got your 20K at rare and 10K at core. A lot of money on the table, Pete. Where do you see yourself playing? I mean, that 100K to first elite's got to be attracting a lot of players. Are you still going after that as a Reignmakers aficionado?
That's the tier I've played the majority of my action in this year, and I plan to do the same for the Super Bowl. I think it's so cool. I mean, this is where, if you owned and bet on Eagles players and Chiefs players to be in the Super Bowl, you're looking pretty. So it's fun to see the marketplace active around these players. And yeah, the elite contest is very enticing. Winning $100,000 in Rainmakers would be awesome. So should be a really fun slate. There's a lot of options. This game does not lack receiving options. There's multiple running backs for each team. Of course, you have Hurts and Mahomes. We'll talk about all the players, but there are quite a few different ways you can go in terms of making lineups. So I think it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it. And to your point, let's talk about the game, right? It's the game of the year. Two amazing teams that have overcome a ton of adversity. You've got electric offenses on both sides of the ball, and you have defenses that really can make problems for the other team's offense. So first and foremost, Eagles and Chiefs. Thoughts on the game in and of itself, and then I want to talk about each position in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, this is a great game. The line opened up with the Chiefs favored by 2.5 points. Quickly was moved to the Eagles being favored by 2.5 points. Now we're seeing kind of -1, +1. DraftKings currently, as we're recording, is -1.5 favor the Eagles, +1.5 for the Chiefs. Money lines everywhere. Favor the Eagles slightly, but it's pretty close. And to me, this should be a pick'em game. The Chiefs have a little more uncertainty with the health of the team. Kind of the reason I think it should be a pick 'em is I assume Patrick Mahomes is going to be relatively close to 100% in a couple weeks. I know he looked pretty good, but definitely missed some throws and was hobbling, in a couple spots. But all the reports were that this was basically best case for a high ankle sprain. It's normally like a 3-week injury. I do think he re-aggravated a little bit, but 2 weeks, Patrick Mahomes, all the best health, people around him. I think he's going to be close to 100%. So I give the Chiefs a quarterback advantage, and that's no slight to Jalen Hurts, who had an amazing year. I think would have been in a really good spot to be MVP without the injury. But now it looks like Mahomes will be MVP, and I do give the quarterback edge to the Chiefs. But everywhere else, it's probably the Eagles, and that's what makes this so interesting. It's a quarterback-driven league, but the Eagles have such a good team, including the best offensive line. They have so much depth at the defensive line, and they've just dominated through the NFC. So I think this should be a really good game, and yeah, it's something that to me looks like a pick 'em. So anytime I can get plus money on either side, I'm pretty interested in that.
Yeah, very interesting. Obviously, a healthy Mahomes is tough to beat, but that Eagles team has shown talent across the board, and including Hurts. One question I do have: who do you give the coaching edge to in this game?
Whew. I mean, again, like that was what's so cool about the playoffs this year is we basically had all the best coaches, best quarterbacks. Like it's just been the cream has really risen to the top this year. So with time to repair, I guess I'll go Andy Reid, but I think we have the best coaches in football in this game.
I love it.
What do you think?
I agree. I think Andy Reid, best play caller in football. I think he has the ability in a 2-week span to get as creative as anybody in the game. I think he has the weapons to do so still, even though they feel like they've lost Tyreek Hill. What they've done on offense this year without him is astonishing. Travis Kelce is unstoppable. And if Mahomes is truly healthy with a 2-week window, I think Andy Reid can really get creative on that play calling sheet. However, you got to give a lot of credit to Sirianni and these Eagles. Just huge strides made in this organization. Jalen Hurts is really a true leader. Every time you hear him speak, it's incredibly impressive. And you gotta really be excited about what Sirianni can do on that play calling sheet with the talent in that offense. I mean, you have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith side by side. It's crazy. So I'm with you. I give it to Andy Reid, but it's close. Two great coaches.
If I was starting a franchise right now, I'd probably take Sirianni as my coach. I mean, Reid's getting up there in age, and I think he's done a tremendous job. And I don't think it's, even if it was 1 week apart, I might go with Sirianni. Just the small edge that Andy Reid's been so good off a bye and with time to prepare. So, but it's close. I mean, we have the best coaches in football, we have the best teams, we have the best players. So it should be a great game.
I don't blame you. Let's shift gears, though. Let's talk quarterback. This is a tough one. You've got two superstar quarterbacks here. And if you're building one lineup, if you have cards for one lineup, are you going with Hurts or are you going with Mahomes, and why?
So I think Mahomes is definitely the better real life quarterback. But in terms of fantasy, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts just because of the rushing upside. And we saw so many rushing touchdowns, especially when they get close. The quarterback sneak is an unstoppable play for this Eagles team. Jason Kelsey deserves so much credit. Best center in football, and a huge part of the reason that the running game is so successful. And in particular, the short rushing plays are so successful for the Eagles. And that's the most important thing. It's the success rate on the third and fourth and shorts that are the most important aspect of a running game. And the Eagles are just so dynamic there. And I think Hurts gets a big benefit, as we've seen, even against San Francisco. They ran the QB sneak multiple times in a row to get him in. So I think his rushing upside makes him a better fantasy play. And if I had to pick one quarterback, I'd go with Hurts.
I'll take it. I'll take it. And then on that note, are we looking at the receiver position as a stack situation for you? Are you mixing and matching? Obviously, the firepower at the receiver position would lean towards the Eagles with AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Is there anybody in the Chiefs offense that you want to slide in there, or who are you going with?
Yeah, to me, I mean, I do think the Eagles have a receiver advantage. That being said, the best tight end in football is Travis Kelsey by a large margin. So he's really interesting. Obviously, you have to make trade offs in terms of how you construct your team with Travis Kelsey, but he's awesome. Dallas Goddard's no slouch either. So yeah, I definitely think it's a stack situation. And then probably the most interesting way to think about your roster is what do you do with the running backs? Pacheco really got a lot more playing time than people anticipated. McKinnon was much more popular in DFS formats, and Pacheco is kind of the lead back. So how will that work? I think McKinnon got a little beat up in the game, so it'll be interesting to kind of handicap the usage for both those two players. And then for the Eagles, I mean, Miles Sanders has been great in the first half, and then they haven't needed him. They've been resting Sanders in second halves in these blowouts and bringing in Kenneth Gainwell, and Boston Scott. So I don't know what to do with the running backs, and I don't know how to think about how you should use your running backs with the quarterback. Someone like McKinnon, I think, pairs well with Mahomes, but maybe you use the opposite running backs. If you have Mahomes, you use the Eagles running backs, and if you have Hurts, you use the Kansas City running backs, hoping that you kind of hit things perfectly. So that's the most confusing position to me is what to do with the running backs.
Yeah, for sure. And McKinnon had that crazy stretch this year of touchdowns. He looked like he was an unstoppable force in DFS. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Pacheco comes in hot last week. On that note, you mentioned Travis Kelsey. It's no secret he's potentially the best player in this game. Is he an automatic start for you, or are you going to mix in some lineups without Kelsey under the assumption that maybe Sirianni and that Eagles defense tries to find a solution for him?
I mean, they're definitely gonna have to find a solution. The Eagles are a really good defense. The only place they're somewhat vulnerable is in the middle of the field. That sets up really well for Travis Kelsey. But we've seen other smart teams double Travis Kelsey a ton and try to make other players beat them. I assume the Eagles will do something similar. So I don't mind teams without Kelsey. I do think he's the best pass catching option and the best tight end of all time, or right there with Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end of all time. So yeah, it's hard to fade him, but I do think there are paths where you get unique. He's obviously going to be really popular, and I do think that the one of the ways that Kelsey could fail is that the Eagles just say, "Hey, we're going to let anyone else beat us other than Travis Kelsey."
But I have to ask, right? There's a lot of offensive firepower in these two lineups. Any chance that you're mixing in a special teams and defense or a kicker into any of your lineups here? Are you going with that variance play with any of those, or is this something where you're just saying, "Hey, I got to have AJ Brown, I got to have Devonta Smith, I got to have Kelsey"? There's too many names that for me to include someone like a Harrison Butker or an Eagles defense.
Yeah, I don't think I'll play much of the kickers. I mean, we're looking at a total in the 51 range, and there's so much firepower that it's hard to envision kickers having the ceiling with all the great options that we have to be on a winning lineup. But I do think the defense is that could be one way that this game goes a little bit differently, and I definitely want some exposure there. So I'm more inclined to go with the defenses just because they have more upside than kickers traditionally have, but yeah, I think both are a little bit more thin than other games, just given where the total is and all the firepower in this game.
Awesome. Well, folks, it's officially Super Bowl weekend and it's Rainmakers weekend. It is a huge weekend of games and prizes. Make sure you get your lineups in. Peter, it has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you and working with you all these weeks, all the way through the football season. Thank you for your expertise and thank you for all your input.
Chris, you've been great. It's been so much fun. I'm looking forward to these shows in the future, and good luck in the Super Bowl. And I hope we see some winners in the Rainmakers. People will check this stuff out, and yeah, it should be an awesome, awesome game.
This is not the last time you've seen Chris Costa and Peter Jennings together, folks. We will be back in the offseason with updates. You'll get more information on what to expect in 2023. You'll get more information on what to expect with the burn and create situation. I think in general, when you talk about craft and burn, there's going to be a lot of information to come out to help answer some of the questions that you have. And a lot of exciting announcements for 2023 Reignmakers football. With that said, everybody have a fantastic Super Bowl weekend. Good luck. Get your lineups in. And don't forget to keep an eye out for all DraftKings Reignmakers content coming up. Happy Super Bowl, folks.